That's all right. I'm not going to say the score. Welcome to Reunion Arena in Dallas, and as they say in the old days, this joint is jumping. First home playoff game for the Mavericks in 11 years. In Game 3 between the Jazz and the Dallas Mavericks. And here in the early going, the Jazz with a 1-point lead, 90 seconds in, along with Bill Walton and Lewis Johnson, Mike Breen on hand, as the Mavericks try and stay alive in this series, Bill.
In this battle of the old versus new, it has been the Utah Jazz in complete control. Brian Russell hit an early three-pointer, the first shot of the afternoon for the Utah Jazz, and the Mavericks have been trying to play catch-up ever since.
Malone inside. Marshall had a strong game 1 with a double-double, but a non-factor in game 2 with his first field goal.
The biggest problem for the Dallas Mavericks has been that Steve Nash, even though his numbers have been good, averaging 20 points per game in this series, has not been able to get to the hoop and penetrate.
Dirk Nowitzki for 3, and perhaps no one needed to get off to a better start for the Mavericks than Nowitzki.
Nowitzki averages nearly 22 points a game during the regular season. He has been significantly down. The percentage has been horrific for Dirk. Remember, he's just 22 years old. Beautiful pass, Stockton, and Utah looks extremely sharp, focused, and disciplined. Karl Malone telling us that this game extremely critical, but will not be won in the first quarter.
And a foul called on Karl Malone. Malone and Stockton both in the vicinity. Malone picks up his first as he argues with Danny Crawford.
Arguing may not be the right word there, just a clarification. Utah Jazz have been in this situation many times. On the road, the hostile crowds. They know what it takes to get it done.
And those two guys, Stockton and Malone, certainly not unnerved whatsoever by a raucous crowd. This place is really alive. Nice feet inside. Michael Finley with a pretty pass into Juwan Howard, finishing it off.
We've seen 2 nice penetrations and dishes from Dallas. Finley that time. Early on, it was Dirk Nowitzki who hit a spot up as Sean Bradley. A lot of contact underneath. Referees just let him play.
Both these teams were 53 and 29 during the regular season, as Pilates can't handle a pass. Mavericks here at Reunion were 28 and 13. They were a tough home team, but the Jazz, one of the best road teams in the NBA this year, at 25 and 16. Russell off the Howard miss. Stockton flips it up. Nowitzki, the rebound. He led the team not only in scoring, but in rebounding during the regular season.
Well, who's going to get a rebound for Dallas? Karl Malone out again.
And Malone inside for an easy 2. And then he gives a little bump to Bradley right down the floor.
That's not Karl Malone's bump. That's Sean Bradley's bump. Karl Malone finished. Been far too much whining, not only in this series, but throughout the playoffs.
Well, the Mavericks have said over the last couple of days since game 2 that one key for them is to stop complaining about the officiating. Stop talking with the refs, as we have our first illegal defense.
The last game between these two teams featured 91 free throws. Karl Malone up in the passing lane, a wild cross-court errant pass by Nowitzki. Karl Malone finishes, and when he turns around to run back up the court, Sean Bradley runs right into him. Can you say that's Karl Malone?
So the two of them engaging already. There's been a lot of stuff like that throughout the series. As you mentioned, the technicals and all the personal fouls. Don Nelson was ejected in game 1.
That ejection later rescinded by the NBA.
Nowitzki with 3 on the shot clock, knocks it down. Dirk Nowitzki 2 for 2 from the field. And the game tied at 11.
In the last game, game 2 at Utah, Dirk Nowitzki at 22 was intimidated. The crowd got on him up there in Utah, took him totally out of his game. He's found a safe haven here in Dallas.
Stockton puts it in. John Stockton, who was at a terrific first 2 games of this series, gives the Jazz a 2-point lead.
Terrific with nothing short of phenomenal. 39 years old.
I think terrific covers it as well. Phenomenal's nice.
Okay.
Finley falling away. Holidays with the rebound, and a loose ball foul is going to go against Sean Bradley. That's his second personal. But there have been a lot of talking to the refs in the first 2 games. You see in game 1, Dallas had 4 technicals. Utah 1. Nelson, as we said, ejected. Vernon Maxwell and Polynice ejected in game 2 as the Mavericks had 5. And they're not even counting the illegal defense. So a lot of technical free throws in this one. Bradley goes down hard as he tried to deny Marshall. Malone strong, and Bradley with a hard foul. And Malone gets hit in the face, a flagrant foul.
There's no place whatsoever. Jerry Sloan up off the bench.
Let's see if they call it a flagrant 1 or flagrant 2.
They've already called it a flagrant.
A flagrant 2, and he would be ejected. Danny Crawford going over. Malone shaken up, and it takes a lot to knock him down. So Bradley with 3 personals, and apparently it's a flagrant 1. It is loud here at Reunion Arena. The physical play continues. The Jazz by 2. There have been a lot of hard fouls in the first 2 games of this series, but perhaps none harder than Sean Bradley's foul on Karl Malone right here.
Inexcusable play by Sean Bradley. Karl Malone loves to finish and drive left. Sean Bradley just comes and makes no attempt whatsoever on the ball. He just comes and hits the guy in the face. Don Nelson does the world of basketball a favor by taking Sean Bradley out of the game.
And Bill, he's lucky. That could easily have been a flagrant 2, which is an automatic ejection. So Malone will shoot 2 free throws, and the Jazz will take it out of bounds.
Sean Bradley has been playing pretty decent basketball for the Dallas Mavericks of late. And with a team that has gotten nothing out of its bench. In fact, Don Nelson telling us that he doesn't even have a bench at this point. He's costing his team, Sean Bradley, a chance to win a playoff game. Won a playoff game.
There's a way to say we won't back down without resorting to that. And a lead up to 3 for Utah. So Bradley will be on the bench for quite some time with 3 personals. Donyell Marshall with his second field goal.
Bradley has 3 personals in the opening 5 minutes of the game. You've got to come and be a basketball player, not a thug.
Calvin Booth has come in for him. And you see the good shooting despite the intense defense. Marshall is on Nash, who puts up the 3. Ball knocked loose by Malone. Calvin Booth right there for the follow. Booth has really struggled in his first playoff appearance. They'll need him to pick it up.
Experience is a major factor here. You're only talking 2 Mavericks that have playoff experience at all. And one of those guys, Michael Finley, was on the injured list.
That was back when he was in Phoenix. Hurt himself at the end of the regular season, but Finley has had a strong first 2 games. Midway through the first, Jazz by 3. Sean Bradley with this flagrant foul against Karl Malone a little bit earlier. There's been accusations of flopping in this series in addition to all the hard fouls, and that's something that was discussed with the officiating crew after this latest flagrant.
We had him flop a couple times with that serious stuff there. And you know what? Be aware of retaliation. And let's work hard, man, okay?
That's Danny Crawford doing the talking in his 17th year, one of the premier officials and the crew chief of this one.
You get so focused in on helping your team, making whatever kind of contribution you can, but you can never lose emotional control, and that's what the Mavericks have done early.
Marshall. Stockton on the offensive rebound.
He's just quicker to the ball and has been throughout the series.
Game 1, rebounding was a big story, especially on the offensive boards where the Jazz killed the Mavericks. They did a better job in Game 2, but still lost.
All the statistics have been in Utah's favor. They've out everything the Dallas Mavericks. Rebound, shooting, passing.
That's a popular phrase. Jeff Van Gundy used it after a Game 2 loss against the Raptors. Pat Riley used it after being eliminated. Out everything. I like that, Bill.
All-encompassing.
Finley looking for Howard. 6 on the shot clock. Malone, excellent defense. Howard gets it back. And Malone the rebound.
Juwan should try to get to the hoop a little bit more against Karl. If you settle for a fadeaway jumper against Karl Malone, you're not putting any pressure whatsoever on him defensively. Nice pass on the back cut.
And a foul before the shot as Nowitzki, a little over aggressive on his ball denial, picks up his first. Third team foul.
The Jazz right now are playing Utah basketball. They're reading defenses. They're setting perfect screens. The execution is flawless. And they're playing an inside-out game. They have found it after struggling down the stretch in the regular season.
Karl Malone hits another. And Malone now 4 of 5 from the field. He's got 9 points already. Jazz back up by 5.
And what do top teams do? They come in on the road. They take the crowd out initially. They play solid defense, force the other team into mental mistakes.
Nowitzki. That 3 won't go. Malone with his 3rd board.
And they play position defense, forcing the other team to beat them with great individual offensive moves, which are still suspect and undetermined for the Dallas Mavericks. And then they rebound defensively.
Tough shot for Malone. Nowitzki the rebound. Jazz, though, shooting well from the field so far, 61%. Nowitzki's pass deflected out of bounds by Marshall, and Dallas will hold on.
Nowitzki has been dribbling it out of the backcourt, and that's generally a good skill. But when you have a player like Steve Nash, who has been struggling to get easy opportunities, try to let him bring it up. Set some screens in the open court for him.
Nash, feet inside to Booth, couldn't handle it at first. Shot blocked by Polides. Second effort by Booth. Nowitzki stepping on his teammate, somehow gets it off, and a foul. A terrific play by Nowitzki, and a chance for a 3-point play.
Dirk Nowitzki working on the offensive glass. Pass a little low to Calvin Booth, who has been playing with the deer in the headlights approach in his first NBA playoff experience. But Dirk Nowitzki's 3-point play conversion gets the Mavericks right back into this. Gives a much-needed impetus on the offensive glass there.
8 points for Nowitzki. Poor Booth took the brunt of that, but no doubt happy for his teammate as Marshall misfires. Booth tips it to Finley.
Daniel Marshall, who has been struggling of late, needs to find a rhythm, a groove to his game.
Although Marshall defensively a big part of Nowitzki's struggles. Nowitzki, another open 3. No good, but a foul. And he will shoot 3 free throws as Marshall ran into him. Marshall picking up his first. And Nowitzki, who's already got 8 points and 3 boards, goes to the line.
Daniel Marshall, who has been such a key player for the Utah Jazz. Here's a guy who has been plagued by foul trouble in this series. But with Dirk Nowitzki this season averaging almost 22 points a game, shooting a terrific percentage, particularly from behind the line, only getting 3 fouls per game. This series has been a different story, though. A nightmare for him. Can't find the range whatsoever and has been played averaging 5 fouls per game. Nowitzki playing all but 1 minute of the first 2 games.
He played the full first game and 47 in the second one. Finley's played all but 2 minutes. As you mentioned, they haven't had a bench, and the starters have really had to log big minutes, and now on a 6-0 run.
And now a trap here, trying, as Don Nelson told us, make Utah think, make them have to come up with a new plan every single time. Discipline of Karl Malone down low.
Howard off the Malone miss.
They finally find Nash in transition.
Howard stepping up, knocking it down. And an 8-0 run puts Dallas up by 3. Jacques Vaughn, of course, who plays the backup to John Stockton.
Vaughn's been playing very solid defense.
Finley ahead to Howard. Foul and 1. 5-point Mavericks lead, and already this place exploding.
The fans hungry as can be. The drought has seemed interminable here. Juwan Howard out in transition. Finally a fast break opportunity. And then Finley strips the ball. The Utah Jazz offense crumbling with Stockton on the bench. Fast break opportunities time and time again for the Dallas Mavericks. Taking control here.
Mavericks on a 10-0 run in the first 2 games of the series. Dallas sometimes didn't use their head. Well, their head coach likes what he sees so far here in game 3.
Don Nelson knows how critically important this game is for the development of the franchise. This is a town that has not seen a lot of happy days over the last decade. By the numbers, they were the worst team in the NBA over those last 10 years. And now they find themselves with a chance to give their fans something to believe in, to hook on to.
It was just 3 years ago. They were 20-62, and as you said, they had just an awful decade in the 90s, but now one of the better teams in the NBA as they lead by 6. Marshall inside. Nice adjustment and patience from Marshall.
Beautiful high post passing again by Karl Malone. The Jazz have to find some way to be efficient and productive when John Stockton's on the bench. Yes, Vaughn's defense has been exemplary.
Oh, goodness gracious. A change Nowitzki. He is really aggressive on the offensive end. And Bill, normally when he gets off early, that's the telltale sign for him.
And maybe that will help free up Steve Nash, because if the Jazz defense has to collapse. Nice give and go. Stepped out of bounds, though.
Nowitzki with half of the team's 26 points.
Dirk Nowitzki, one of those gym rats, the guy that just lives to play basketball, lives 5 minutes from the practice center, was there late last night working on his jumper. Seems to have paid off.
Vaughn with the foul. Jacque Vaughn picking up his second already. And Utah on the penalty, so Nash will go to the free throw line. Nash has hit 13 of 14 from the line so far in the series. He's done a good job scoring, averaging 20 a game in the first 2.
But is that really his game? They want it to be his game. Here's a guy who grew up in Victoria, British Columbia, looking out over the Straits of Juan de Fuca there, 4 blocks from the water in that glamorous city. A guy who is often compared to John Stockton, Steve Nash, and John Nelson says, we don't want you to be John Stockton. We want you to be a gunner. We want you to put that ball up all the time.
In fact, they had some heated conversations in last season just about that, in terms of Nash looking for his offense more. 7 on the shot clock. David Benoit just in the game on the floater. Malone, excellent hustle, knocks it out of bounds, but his deflection off Nowitzki hit Malone, and it's Dallas ball.
The Jazz have fallen apart since John Stockton went to the bench, and Jerry Sloan is going to patiently wait it out. Karl Malone fiercely competing for that ball. The ricochet off the shoulder of Dirk Nowitzki. Maverick ball.
Danny Manning in the game for the first time. Manning hit the clutch 3 to win game 1. Nash's pass deflected to Howard off the rim.
Fine recovery by Brian Russell, defending always the top perimeter player for the opponents of the Jazz.
Nash setting up Nowitzki for 3. It's good. Dirk Nowitzki, 16 points here in the opening period.
That is what the Mavericks desperately need. Someone who can penetrate into the teeth of the defense and free up to give Nowitzki open looks, as opposed to making him create all by himself. Jacque Vaughn, how many times has he been on the ground this afternoon?
An 18-2 run for the Dallas Mavericks. Manning. Nice easy shot from Danny Manning to momentarily quiet this raucous crowd.
Easy for you to say. A 15-foot runner from the foul line.
Effortless for Danny Manning. Nash again getting inside. Calvin Booth can't connect. Manning the rebound. Final half minute of the first quarter.
Where are they going to get their offense from, the Utah Jazz? Now that both Malone and Stockton on the bench. Manning should be the primarily playmaker here.
Vaughn. Howard gets it to Nash. Shot clock turned off.
An eternity of time.
Not a good decision on the pass. Threw it in a crowd. Polynice. It'll count if it goes. Looked like Nowitzki got a piece of it. And that will end the first quarter. Dirk Nowitzki, struggling the first couple of games, erupts here in the opening period back in the comfy confines of Reunion Arena. Nowitzki with the 16 points. Mavs an 18-4 run in the last 4.5 minutes, and they lead by 9. Mavericks a 9-point lead after one. Dirk Nowitzki with 16 first-quarter points. He struggled shooting in the first 2 games, but he had a lot of support here in Dallas, including his coach from Germany, Holger Gerschwinder, who is standing by right now with our Lewis Johnson.
All right, Mike, thanks a lot. Holger, you've been here for about a week. Dirk called you in. What have you all been working on mechanically? What were his problems?
Yeah, he was taking off-balance shots. You know, the wrist action starts too slow. The hand was not open, and we worked on those details, and so far, as I can see, it works pretty fine so far.
Yeah, when you watch him today, he seems to be a lot more confident. What else is it psychologically that seems to be better for Dirk today?
Yeah, he had to get ready, you know, that the playoffs is the beginning of a season, and not after 82 games the season is over. So that is very new for him, and I guess now he's ready to do it, and I hope it will continue the game and they will win.
How much longer will you stay here? How long? As long as Dirk needs you? What's the plan?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Dankeschön, and enjoy your stay here, huh?
Dankeschön, bitteschön.
Okay. Mike?
Thank you, Lewis. That goes without saying. He stays as long as Dirk wants him to stay.
He stays as long as Dallas is in the playoffs. But Coach Holger, he is a terrific player himself in his own right. He was a member of the 1972 German national team, and when he first saw Dirk Nowitzki playing at age 16. When Dirk was 16 over in Germany, he said, hey, look, you got a coach? And he said, no, I don't. I'm just getting started in basketball. He said, well, you come work with me. Within 4 weeks of training with Coach Holger, then Dirk was on the German national team himself.
Finley. There's Howard Isley, former Utah player. Benoit with the rebound. Finley is scoreless, and still Dallas is up by 7. Shows you how well everyone else playing. As the ball knocked out of bounds, still Utah ball.
Finley was magnificent in Utah, but the real strength of this Maverick team is their transition game, their wide open game with Steve Nash creating and Dirk Nowitzki finishing. Finley can get him through the tough points.
Isley for 3. Isley's been struggling shooting in the second half of the season. In fact, he didn't play at all in game 2. That was his first did not play all season long. Manning against Booth. Shot clock down to 7. Vaughn setting up Benoit. Wide open 3. Won't go, and Nowitzki another rebound, his 5th.
Where is the shooting from the perimeter for the Utah Jazz?
Nowitzki against Benoit. Good matchup for Dallas. Nowitzki to rush it. Stockton will come the other way.
Finally, Stockton back into the game, and things seem to settle down instantly.
Manning, pretty fake inside, and a goaltend on Booth. Boy, what a little head fake will do.
Well, Danny, one of the most graceful players of this era. Andy Manning telling us yesterday how in recovering from those 3 ACL surgeries that he had, that he really has no idea what he lost, because it was 26 games into his rookie season that he initially tore it, and ever since it's been a vertically challenged game for Danny Manning.
Howard misfires. Again, he's had a really nice NBA career, but imagine without all the injuries what it could have been. Mavs, meanwhile, have missed their first 4 shots of the second quarter.
But the way they go back into Manning.
Ostertag tried to tip it. Howard comes away.
And give him a chance to be the focal point. Nice defensive stab there by the Jazz. A lot of dribbling by Dallas.
And then eventually it leads to a foul by Manning. So Manning with his first and the team's first. So they'll take it out of bounds. Want to remind you, of course, coming up an NBA on NBC triple header.
Steve Nash not on the bench very long right here.
Of course, you watched, Billy, watch the 76ers win a close one against Indiana as Nash gets it inside to Howard. And an offensive foul on Juwan Howard. That'll be his first. I want to remind you to log on to MSNBCSports.com for in-depth playoff coverage. Matt Gukas with commentary on the Eastern Conference. Steve Jones analyzes the Western Conference. And you, Bill, your questions, you can email them and check out Bill's latest playoff mailbag. It's all at MSNBCSports.com.
A lot of questions about the Heat. A lot of questions about the Blazers. A lot of questions about the Knicks. Who can win on the road? Obviously, the Heat weren't able to.
Mavericks unable to in the first 2 games, but have come out storming here in Game 3. Finley, a long 3. Stockton runs down the rebound.
The read of the long rebound. John Stockton, just absolutely exquisite at what he does on that play.
Malone off the mark. Howard the rebound. One thing the Mavs have certainly done is they've not argued with the officials. Again, that was the big problem in the first 2 games, but they're trying to just play. Felt it was an enormous distraction for them.
What defense by Stockton.
Finley, tough shot, won't go. Finley now 0 for 4.
The Mavericks came into this series acting as if somebody was going to give them something. You've got to come out when you're playing against the Utah Jazz, when you're playing against the Lakers, when you're playing against the Spurs, the Knicks, you got to take it away from them. Nobody's going to hand you anything at this level. This is about the greatest in the world playing for the ultimate prize.
And a foul down low, as we'll have a timeout with 8:22 remaining. Dallas, a 5-point advantage. Five-point lead for Dallas, though they still haven't scored here in this second quarter. Jazz, of course, up 2-0 in the series. Experience against youth, Bill. That's the story so far in the first 2 games.
The Dallas Mavericks coming into this playoff series had played a total of 11 playoff games. The guys on their current roster. Since then, they've bumped those numbers up with the 2 games up in Salt Lake City. With Stockton and Malone, some of the most playoff-savvy veterans in NBA playoff history, you've got a huge gap here. What experience teaches you is how hard it is and how great you have to play and how it takes absolutely everything that you have. And there can be no distractions, no failure to deliver at the critical moments. And that's been the difference for Utah.
Nash's basket, meanwhile, their first points of the quarter took them nearly 4 minutes. And the lead back to 7. Malone, Stockton for 3. Way short. Malone the offensive rebound.
Utah's plan, their style, play slow on the offensive end, but play fast and quick on defense.
Russell gets inside. Isley the rebound.
Dallas is playing straightaway defense. No gimmicks right now. The gimmicks that cause you to lose against Utah.
Oh, Finley with a circus shot. And he got fouled in the process. First points of the game for Finley. And Dallas up by 9 as Benoit picks up his first personal.
Michael Finley, who carried the load. We talked about the playoff experience. Here was a guy who was on the Phoenix Suns before coming over here in the '96 season when the Suns were obviously always in the playoffs. He missed that one opportunity to get some of this much-needed experience after spraining his left ankle in the 4th and final quarter of the final game against Houston. So a nightmare situation there for Michael Finley. Enjoying it, though, right now.
Finley averaged 21 points a game during the regular season, averaging 29 through the first 2 of this series. Stockton falling away, in and out. Russell's tip won't go, and Isley has it taken away. But a loose ball foul is going to go against the Utah Jazz. Russell and Finley exchanging some blows. Russell's first foul.
Utah's shooting percentage is plummeting right now.
They're down to 35%, and they were in the 60s very early.
And they're getting decent looks. Can anybody slow down Dirk Nowitzki?
Has it knocked away that time. Malone and Howard with an exchange as they come up the floor. Marshall, reverse layup. Gets his own rebound. Stripped down below by Isley.
A 4-on-2 and the Jazz can't convert.
Nowitzki. Long rebound comes out. Howard. Little helter-skelter on this possession. And Nowitzki misses again.
That shows you how far it's come down for Howard Isley. Used to play for the Utah Jazz and now won't even take a wide open shot.
Manning, meanwhile, does. And Danny Manning able to put it in. Manning with 8 points in 7 minutes off the bench. Coming up on the midway point here of the second quarter, along with Bill Walton and Lewis Johnson, Mike Green on hand, as the Dallas Mavericks trying to stay alive. Finley.
This is the perfect situation for Danny Manning to excel in. He'll look back on his career and say, why did it take me so long to get to the Utah Jazz?
A technical foul has been called on Juwan Howard after the personal foul. Howard kind of held on to Malone's jersey. Malone talking to Howard now.
Well, there's
Stockton trying to keep Malone away from the officials, or from Howard, more importantly.
There's been so much animosity that has been built up. It's carried over from the ownership and management levels to Nelson and Jerry Sloan. And now with the play clearly over, and Juwan Howard just continues. Inexcusable for a player of Juwan Howard's class and level of play.
.37-year-old Karl Malone playing as well as ever, as he's got 9.6 rebounds. He will shoot a technical fracture. He won't shoot the technical free throw. Stockton will. The foul was before the shot. So Stockton will shoot the technical free throw on Juwan Howard, and then the Jazz will inbound.
Don Nelson was arguing during the timeout about whether there was also a technical called on Karl Malone. But Juwan Howard is getting into it in the incorrect manner with Karl Malone. If you're ever going to beat the Utah Jazz, and you look at the teams that have had success, San Antonio with Duncan and Robinson, Chicago with Dennis Rodman, the Lakers with Shaq, you got to have somebody who's going to stand up there and fight them in a basketball sense. Fight them for possession of that ball. Fight them for position on the court. Beautiful back cut.
This time it's Malone to Stockton, who gets it easy too. And they haven't done that. We had the flagrant foul that Bradley did on Malone, and now the technical that Howard on him.
But who's competing above the rim with Karl? Who's competing in transition?
Tough shot from Steve Nash. Nash with 6 points and 4 assists, and Dallas back up by 8.
And now we finally get a sense of Steve Nash coming alive and coming back and finding ways to attack Stockton. Use the pick and roll yourself.
Shot clock at 7. Russell.
Not even close.
Nowitzki. Nash.
The only shots that are going down for the Jazz are the layups. And those are barely finding the mark.
Howard inspires Marshall to rebound.
Yet they're only down 8. And Nowitzki seems to have lost his rhythm, his groove.
Nowitzki had 16 points in the first half, is yet to score in the first quarter. I say yet to score in the second, as Malone knocks down another, and he's in double figures with 11.
Karl Malone, Jerry Sloan, Manning, Stockton, they all told us this game will not be won early because there's so much emotion riding early for this young, inexperienced Maverick team. That explosion you expect from them. Can they sustain it, though?
Nowitzki, nice fake, gets inside. An exclamation point at the end, and Nowitzki with 18 points.
The two things that Don Nelson wants more out of Dirk Nowitzki. A better post-up game and passing against the double team.
Offensive foul call against the Jazz. Malone, his second personal.
Dirk Nowitzki, who is a full 7 feet, plays his best in the post when he's facing up. His back to the basket game is not that good. Just torches Donyell Marshall here in the strong finish. Nothing even Karl Malone can do about it.
It's his 3rd year in the league. Even Don Nelson says he didn't expect him to be this good this soon. He has really become one of the top players in the league this season.
He's 22 years old.
Very scary. Finley blocked from behind by Manning. And it's Dallas ball, 7 on the shot clock.
Nowitzki's career first got started here. He's a lottery pick. Nobody really ever heard of him. Didn't play much at the beginning. Very, very good his second year, and this year, I thought, an all-star level. But with so many great power forwards in the Western Conference, he got left off.
Juwan Howard has come on strong. 9.7 rebounds for Howard. who's had a couple of subpar games in the first two. Malone trying to draw the foul, a travel. Jerry Sloan upset. 8 turnovers for the Utah Jazz.
Now is the time to come right back to Juwan Howard and let him play one-on-one, go into the hoop. Karl Malone's got 2 fouls. Karl Malone is barking at the refs.
Finley, good defense from Russell, and he forces the turnover. Brian Russell, an excellent defender.
Russell has come back to his normal, fine level of play. Here's a guy who really struggled the last month and a half. Couldn't make a shot, couldn't defend. Donaldson said there was no problem with his game, but he has always been there. One of the few players who regularly plays better in the playoffs than in the regular season, Brian Russell.
Malone flips it up, does not get the roll. Howard the rebound. Boy, Howard and Nowitzki playing very aggressively here in game 3. Nowitzki running the floor, and a blocking foul call on Jacques Vaughn.
Jacques Vaughn running underneath a player who's already in the air. Easily called against the Utah Jazz. Sloan cannot believe it.
Nowitzki took a lot of heat for that comment that he said between games 1 and 2 because Dallas returned to Texas after game 1.
I'm going to have to take Dirk to some of the finer places in Salt Lake City. They have magnificent restaurants, Lakai, Tuscany, take them up into City Creek Canyon, show them the Wasatch Mountains there. Salt Lake City, one of the better stops.
You're comfortable anywhere, though. You're a very easy guy.
The airport is close to
please.
The gym.
Right. As Nowitzki knocks down the second. Largest lead of the game.
About the comments that Dirk made, this is his first experience at this kind of level of intensity, the fierce competition, the incredible pride.
Isley strips it. Manning gets it back. Marshall trying to keep it alive. Daniel Marshall.
Finally. Just not sharp offensively, the Utah Jazz. But after Dirk made those comments, a radio station in Salt Lake City put the Dallas Mavericks fax number on the air. And the Mavericks fax machine was overwhelmed. They had to unplug their own office fax machine.
Nash, count it, and one. Steve Nash with a pretty shot.
With the Utah Jazz struggling offensively, can't make a shot. They're having to rely on scramble plays in the basket area. Flailing away, Daniel Marshall, Karl Malone, Danny Manning. Finally, a throwdown dunk. Steve Nash has just been terrific. And Steve Nash, he learned under Kevin Johnson. He started his NBA career playing for the Phoenix Suns when Kevin Johnson was torching him.
He loved the way Johnson played. Nash playing well here in the first half with 9 points.
How could you not love the way KJ played?
Some of his opponents may not have liked it. Manning able to hit it. Nash, meanwhile, loves playing against John Stockton just because of the challenge. He called Stockton a freak of nature yesterday. He has that much respect for Stockton at age 39 to still be doing what he's doing. Nowitzki blocked by Marshall, but a foul. 2 fouls on Marshall, and Nowitzki already with 20 points back to the line.
But totally unlike what happened in the first 2 games when Steve Nash was unable to get anything going other than his own shot. Now he's in the lane. Now he's setting up guys. This former soccer player, his dad, a national level player in South Africa.
Nowitzki hitting the first. Coming up tonight, the Orlando Magic try to stay alive on TNT. Coverage begins at 8 Eastern. They're down 2-0 to the Milwaukee Bucks.
When I asked Jason Kidd about Steve Nash's success, he credits a lot of his success to his soccer training and his foot speed that he developed as a fine soccer player. His younger brother Martin, Steve Nash, plays on the Canadian national soccer team.
Malone's second effort doesn't go, and Nash coming the other way. 3-on-2 break.
Beautiful.
Isley spots up. And Stockton tracks down the rebound. Stockton has 6 rebounds. Russell inside. Pretty reverse move from Brian Russell. Says, hey, I got hit in the head.
Well, finally some transition opportunities. Dallas is a team, when they beat Utah twice in the regular season, they averaged 25 fast break points a game. In the 4 losses that they've had, including the playoffs, they only got 11 fast break points per game. Offensive foul, Howard Eisley.
Eisley clearly pushing off with the right arm and picks up his first personal.
Howard Eisley pushing off once, pushing off a second time, constantly initiating the contact, which is what you want to do. You got to keep that off arm in tighter to the body.
Trying to trap Stockton, who's got 7 assists and 7 rebounds here in the first half.
The nightmare for Howard Eisley continues.
Manning with that little push shot that he does so effectively. And Danny Manning now with 10 of his 12 points in the second quarter.
They're playing small ball, the Jazz are. They've got nothing out of Polynesian Ostertag. Tough for Ostertag, who's a Dallas area native here. He just got basically a cup of hot water.
About a 4-second difference between shot and game clock. Finley, tough angle, does not get there. All Nowitzki takes it in. Shot clock turned off. Final possession of the first half.
Jazz are getting pushed under their own defensive backboard.
Malone hits the 3 at the buzzer. Karl Malone from downtown. And he hears the boos as he walks off the floor. 14 points for Karl Malone.
Looks like those boos are really intimidating him.
That's his first 3-point attempt of the series. And Malone finishes it off in dramatic fashion for the Utah Jazz. But it's the Dallas Mavericks that really perform well in the first half. Facing elimination, Dirk Nowitzki coming up huge in the first half. 24 points for Nowitzki. He did it from everywhere, Bill.
He has certainly battled off the intimidating presence that suffocated his game early. Now he's got it going.
And coming up after these messages, Ahmad, PJ, and KJ standing by in New York with net 0 at the half. Dallas leading by 8. You're watching the NBA on NBC.
Lewis Johnson back in Dallas as we prepare to begin the second half of this game. And just a few moments ago, I caught up with Jerry Sloan of Utah as he came out of the locker room, and he told me that his comments during the timeout really were about the team aspect of the game and what's not going right. Really unhappy with allowing Dallas to drive baseline on the Jazz, not executing the offense in a crisp fashion. He told his guys, you know, look, we're down by 8 points right now, and if we stay mentally tough, we might have a chance to get this thing in the end. Mike?
All right, Lewis. He's gotten some good play from his bench, including Danny Manning. That's been also a key part. Look at the Dallas bench. They've been non-existent for much of the series. Manning's a big part of Utah's.
The Dallas Mavericks have 11 points total in 2.5 games off their bench. That won't get it done as the nightmare continues for Howard Eisley. But one thing that's been a big plus for Dallas has been the disparity between point guard play. In Utah, John Stockton was light years ahead of Steve Nash. It has been a wash in the first half of Game 3.
Malone against Howard. Pass inside. Marshall couldn't get it. Nowitzki knocked it away. Well, I have a jump ball. Nowitzki's a much better defender than he was. In fact, Don Nelson told us yesterday that's maybe his biggest improvement. They used to kid him. His nickname was Irk Nowitzki. Irk as in no D. But he has turned that around nicely.
Player development. That's what great coaches do. Don Nelson played in some of the great defensive teams of all time with the Boston Celtics. He was a teammate of Bill Russell. He was a teammate of Dave Cowan, John Havlicek, and Paul Silas. Our congratulations to Silas in their fine victory over the Miami Heat.
The sweep of the Heat as Marshall knocks down the shot. Of course, both teams playing without some key guys. John Starks not here for the Utah Jazz. Starks had groin surgery earlier this week and most likely will miss Game 4. He's back in Utah, and we wish him well in his recovery. Starks in his first year with Utah. And Greg Buckner also not here for Dallas. And a lot of people might know about Buckner, but he's an instrumental part of their success as Nash misses. Ball knocked loose. Bryant trying to hold on to it. Nash comes up with it.
Stick a fork in it.
That's a 3. Nowitzki off the mark. Stockton the rebound.
Haven't heard a lot of the players here referring to John Starks' problem as minor surgery.
Offensive foul on Stockton. Well, the old saying is, if it's your surgery, there's nothing such minor surgery, but Starks hopefully will be back by later in the playoffs, whether it's this series or if the Jazz do advance in the next round. Stockton, meanwhile, his second foul. Finley just 1 of 8 from the field, as Nowitzki has picked up the scoring slack for the Mavericks. Ball knocked out of bounds. Still Mavs ball. 10 on the shot clock. A little change from the first 2 games. Dallas had to come from behind. They were down by as many as 13 and 20 in the first 2 games.
Dallas led game 1 by 4 with 1.5 minutes to go. Oh, Steve Nash
does not get the roll, however. Knocked out of bounds. Last touch by Malone. You see Mark Bryant fighting in there. Bryant started the second half. He didn't play a lot this season, but he played effectively against Malone in game 1.
Well, Sean Bradley, who has been pretty decent, has not been a factor. I don't think he's come back in the game since Nelly pulled him out after that flagrant foul on Karl Malone in the opening moments.
That was his 3rd personal, so he sat down and only played 5 minutes. Another whistle. They're going to count the basket. They're going to call an illegal defense, but apparently the shot attempt was just prior to the call, as Danny Crawford and Eddie Rush, good teamwork from the officials. Jerry Sloan obviously disagrees.
The argument that Sloan is coming with is that the whistle blew and everybody stopped, and then they counted the basket.
But Crawford checked with Rush, who said yes, the shot attempt was on the way, and they'll count the 3-pointer. Nash now with 12 points.
And has now moved ahead of John Stockton in that critically important battle of the point guards.
And Malone answers back. 16 now for Karl Malone. Malone having a terrific all-around game. He also has 7 rebounds and 5 assists.
But Stockton is such a special player that he can go through a prolonged drought and still come back and have the determining impact on the game.
Nowitzki puts it in. Dirk Nowitzki continues his good shooting. He's got 26.
Compare the shot selection and shot type that Dirk Nowitzki has got in this game as opposed to the 2 games up in Salt Lake City, where he always had somebody quick underneath his feet. He always had double teams coming right at him.
Here's Bryant. Malone gets right by him very easily. Ryan has a word for Nowitzki as to where's the help.
But Malone's swing through of the ball on the inside pivot there, forcing the defense to commit one way and then just going right by him.
Howard, nice move, but terrible shot. And the Jazz come the other way. 3 minutes gone by here in this 3rd quarter, and a whistle away from the ball. Bryant called for the foul. That's his first.
Movement without the ball, critical if you're ever going to be successful against the Utah Jazz. With Steve Nash playing well, with Michael Finley drawing defensive attention, that's going to free up Dirk Nowitzki.
Booth comes in for Bryant. Crowd has settled in a bit. Again, this is the first home playoff game in 11 years for these Mavericks, as Malone now with 20 points and the lead cut to 5. Talk about a high percentage shot.
Failing to prepare defensively by Calvin Booth. Now, granted, he's just a very young player, a terrific prospect, but you have to anticipate they're coming to Karl Malone. Defensive block by John Stockton.
And the Jazz will take over.
Calvin Booth on the previous possession for Karl Malone. He's standing there and doesn't even touch Karl Malone. Just says, okay, can you make a layup, Karl? I would think that the 2nd greatest scorer in the history of basketball would be able to make that shot every time.
Nowitzki got a piece of that, but Marshall on the follow. Daniel Marshall coming back with a strong game. He's got 12.
Don Nelson's seen enough. He's realized that he's losing control of this game quickly. He cannot be happy with any of his interior defenders.
So 6 straight points by the Utah Jazz, and they've pulled within 3.
Well, they're allowing penetration. Brian Russell able to get to the hoop. When that shot is off the mark, it's down. Daniel Marshall following the lead of Karl Malone, dominating in the basket area.
When Michael Finley first arrived in Dallas 5 years ago in a trade from Phoenix, he said it was terrible. So most of the players didn't even want to be here. Now it has turned around. There's a sense of pride to play for the Mavs, to work for the Mavs, and obviously to root for the Mavs. As Roger Staubach, one of those in attendance.
Timeless legends. Roger Staubach comes right back to witness the contributions of John Stockton and Karl Malone. The aspirations of a young player, Michael Finley. Trying to make it happen is Juwan Howard.
And the foul called on Howard. That's his third. But you look at what Michael Finley went through. There were some awful years here. They won 11 games in one year in the 90s, 13 another season. I mean, that's just horrible basketball for so many years. And now it's a hot ticket. It's a fun place to be here in Dallas.
The spirit is back, and that is what Mark Cuban and Don Nelson have been able to do. Block shot by Calvin Booth.
5 on the shot clock. Malone's going to try another three. He already has one. Well short. And Nash the rebound.
Calvin Booth is hurt. He can't get up and down the court.
Nash. Oh, and a shot from Nash. Now the Mavericks back up by 5. Booth, though, still hobbling a bit down the other end of the floor. He never made it up in the front court.
Can't move his leg. They should isolate him in attack. Offensive foul, Donyell Marshall.
He pushed off of Nowitzki, and Marshall picks up his third personal.
Steve Nash, who was forced to play a perimeter game, has been able to get by John Stockton. What hand did he shoot that with? That was a left-handed shot.
Beauty.
That's what Maverick fans have come to expect from Steve Nash. That's why when he doesn't play well, they can't win.
And this year he's been healthy. That's been the bottom line for Nash. If he's healthy, blocking foul called on Stockton. And Stockton has 3 personals.
A lot of blood here. This is a tough call that goes against John Stockton.
Nash's forehead is bleeding.
Well, Nash is going to have to go and get a ton of treatment here, because the head collision, and John Stockton trying to find out what planet he's on here. I just don't see how that's a defensive foul. John Stockton is stepping right in there.
Stockton talking with Eddie Rush, and Nash is going to go back into the locker room to get attended to.
And now Don Nelson is going to have to put a free throw shooter in there. Or will free throws be shot here?
I don't think so. I think they call it before any shot, so they'll take it out. It's only the first team foul on the Jazz. So Howard Isley comes back in the game.
Remarkably,
Stockton's still holding on to his jaw.
he'll be holding on to that for quite a few years. That's the kind of thing that 10 years after you retire, you say, gosh, what happened that day down in Dallas?
On those cold, damp days, he'll feel it.
He may be the one guy who doesn't feel it.
And he certainly won't admit it, even if he does. Stockton and Malone so durable over the years. Howard, 1 on the shot clock, just gets it off, and Russell the rebound.
Again, we talked at the outset about the defense of Stockton and Malone in this series. Karl Malone at time completely denying Howard.
Malone misfires. Calvin Booth, who apparently is okay, gets the rebound. Finley, good defense from Russell to force the turnover. As players diving all over the place. And an offensive foul call on Michael Finley. Russell is the latest player down on the court.
Don Nelson is up. He didn't see this hit. He's calling for a flop here. Brian Russell stood right in there, and the swing, the rotation of the trunk to get open. The loose ball is going to come into the hands of Michael Finley. Bam, right in the chin. Amazing that Brian Russell can even get up.
Certainly not. It didn't look like it was intentional. Russell was just right up in his face.
Michael Finley had no idea that Brian Russell was that close.
Finley's first foul. Malone deep in the paint again. When he gets it down that far in the post, forget it.
But this is where the Jazz are at their best, when it gets really tough. And the fans are yelling. Everybody's trying to take advantage and fool the referee.
Nowitzki misses, and the rebound goes to Malone. Malone now 22 points and 9 rebounds.
But unless John Stockton can take advantage of Steve Nash's absence, it's going to be very difficult.
Malone, count it.
And 1.
And a foul. Carmel. No, wait a minute. They're going to say before the shot. Malone is infuriated.
They got to count this basket. They're going to count it, yeah. No,
they say before.
What is going on here? Calvin Booth, who has just been tortured down low. Hard to see how that is not a made basket.
So they call a foul on Booth. Now they're going to change it. Now that's the right call.
Well, they are counting the basket.
Yeah, they have to count it.
Jerry Sloan knows how critically important this game is. You lose momentum in game 3, then game 4 totally up for grabs. Who knows what could happen in the 5th and deciding game. Dallas has already won twice in Salt Lake City this year, both regular season games. They had a chance to win both games. Karl Malone can't get the important free throw to fall.
Booth sits down after that foul. Malone with 10 of his 24 here in this third quarter. And there's still 5.5 to play in the period.
But the defense now for Utah is dug in. And that's not a good sign. The pace is slowed.
Finley, nice move inside, but can't finish. Fight for the rebound. Bradley is the beneficiary of the deflection. Well, Bradley back on the floor after only playing the first 5 minutes and getting himself in foul trouble, plus that flagrant.
Who says size doesn't matter?
3-point lead for Dallas.
Stockton picking up his dribble way too early.
Malone won't go. Bradley the rebound. And a loose ball foul call on Olden Pilates, his second. Let's send it to Lewis Johnson.
All right, Mike, thanks. We saw Steve Nash and Stockton collide a few moments ago. Well, I just came back from the Dallas locker room, and Nash is receiving stitches in his forehead over the right eye. Right now, Dr. Pepe Zamorano is back there with him, and as soon as they can get him sutured up, he'll be back out on the court.
Thank you, Lewis.
Sean Bradley's made a positive contribution after the disaster of the opening moments.
Russell, and a reach-in foul call on Brian Russell. That's his second. And for Utah, their third team foul.
Finley's not playing well offensively. Don't gamble like that. If you're Brian Russell, who's always charged with guarding the Jordans, the Kobe Bryants.
Isley with a pretty move. Howard Isley puts Dallas back up by 5.
And here's a guy, Howard Isley, who did not get in the last game. The ultimate indignation when the coach said, look, you're not even good enough to play today. Now he's got the whole load on his shoulders.
Malone misfires. Ball tipped by Bradley. Bradley was boxed out, but he tipped it to Howard.
Bradley continues to have a positive impact here in the second half.
And the physical play continues. Nowitzki. Three-pointer not even close, and Stockton the rebound.
Watch your face.
Stockton has 10 rebounds in the game. He leads the Jazz with 10 boards. He also 9 assists. Malone.
Karl's taking very difficult shots. Everything off a dribble. You can make Karl Malone dribble. Your chances improve ever so slightly as a defender.
Finley can't connect. Russell the rebound. Finley now 1 of 10 from the field.
One of the reasons Stockton's got those 10 rebounds is that the Utah big men are getting pushed underneath their defensive backboard. With Nash able to penetrate, with Isley down the lane, with Nowitzki having a big game. So Stockton's had to come in and get a lot of long rebounds this afternoon.
An illegal defense call against the Dallas Mavericks. That's their first, so just a warning.
But Isley, who came here and signed a 7-year, $41 million contract last season. Now John Stockton, who had a lifetime of experience playing against Howard Isley, unable to keep him out, and Stockton will go for his prescribed rest by the clock. John's going to go to the locker room and get checked out himself after that collision that he took with Steve Nash, resulting in the stitches for Nash.
Either that or a bathroom break. Didn't see a trainer following him to the locker room. And another illegal defense, quickly 2 in a row, so that's a technical foul. 3:20 remaining here in the third. 62-57 as the Mavericks leading by 5. Utah leading 2-0 in this best-of-5 series. So a victory for the Utah Jazz, and they advance to the second round. Of course, Dallas loses, they go home.
We were talking to Karl yesterday about his free throw shooting and how much he's improved, and he said he's never been called for the violation of taking too much time. In the old days up in Seattle when the fans would count him down, and Karl saying that he would just wait till they would get to 14 or 15 on their accelerated count. Well, just to irk them a little bit more.
It's in the rule book. You have to shoot a free throw within 10 seconds. I've never seen it called. Marshall puts in a 3. Daniel Marshall from downtown, and it's back to a 3-point game.
This is where the Jazz fell apart. when Stockton went to the bench in the second quarter.
Finley drew the foul and just flipped it up as Ostertag tried to come over. They call the foul on Malone. That's his third. And Finley will go to the line. Michael Finley, just 3 points. He has 4 assists, but only 1 of 10 from the field. And the Mavericks still holding on to a 1-point lead. Coming up next in the nightcap of our NBA playoff tripleheader, Kevin Garnett and the Timberwolves trying to stay alive as they take on Tim Duncan and the Spurs. Game 3 from the Target Center. Spurs and Timberwolves coming up next on NBC.
Whenever you're playing against great opponents like Robinson and Duncan, Stockton and Malone, Shaq, you got to have somebody who says, look, this is how we're going to play this game. We're not going to play your game because we can't beat you at your game. The challenge for Terrell Brandon, for Kevin Garnett, and Flip Saunders is to find somebody who says, look, we're going to dictate the terms of this conflict. Tough pass inside by Malone. Too many defenders in traffic.
And Finley coming up with a steal. Nowitzki alley-oop for Howard, who made a wise decision not to go, and makes a wiser decision on the shot.
What was that pass by Dirk? What was he thinking?
11 points for Howard. Mavs back up by 4, just under 2.5 to play in the third.
The grinded out game, though, that is Utah Jazz basketball. Wide open transition, creativity, and imagination. That's the Mavericks game.
Marshall. Nice pull-up from Marshall. And Daniel Marshall having a strong game. He's got 17.
And it's about time. Daniel Marshall was 1 for 6 in the last game. He had 4. John Stockton, fortunately, back and available for duty.
Isley on the penetration. Knocked away from behind. Jacques Vaughn with good defense.
Fine transition defense, always a critical factor when you're playing Utah because their execution on the break generally flawless.
Russell wide open, puts it in, and they've tied it up. The Jazz have come back from 13 down to even this one at 65.
What execution. That's Jazz basketball. Now Steve Nash in the locker room getting sewn up. Stockton ready to get back into this thing. Karl Malone picking apart players off the split off the low post feed.
Foul on Vaughn. And Jacques Vaughn picking up his 4th. And now the Jazz in the penalty. So free throws coming up for the Dallas Mavericks. Isley will go there. Juwan Howard and the Mavs all tied up 65 apiece here in game 3. Earlier in the third quarter, Steve Nash colliding with the chin of John Stockton, and Nash had to go back to the Mavericks locker room to get some stitches. And let's get an update from Lewis Johnson.
All right, Mike, thanks a lot. I'm standing here in the tunnel expecting Steve Nash to walk out at any moment. I was told by their personnel that he received 7 stitches over his right eye, and because of all the blood on his uniform, he's having to change his uniform now. He'll be back out in a second. As for John Stockton, they just took him back a few moments ago to check him out, make sure that he was okay after the collision, and as you know, he is back on the bench. Mike?
All right, thank you, Lewis. And Stockton is checked back in the game as Isley gets the first free throw.
The question is how long Steve Nash is going to have to stay in that locker room, because while he can certainly play and play fine with the stitches, it's when Stockton went to the bench in the first half that the big swing in momentum went to Dallas, and it's now then Steve Nash had to go to the locker room and the big swing went back in favor of the Utah Jazz. Get him out here.
There you see the free throw shooting and the big difference. Ostertag misfires. Bradley, good defense and the rebound. So Bradley, who hurt them in the first quarter, has done some good things here in the third.
Sean Bradley has always been effective against the Utah Jazz. They've never really been able to exploit the weaknesses that he has as a turnover here and a lack of focus and concentration by Howard Isley comes back to haunt him.
Isley had to avoid a potential backcourt violation, and they throw it away. So for Dallas, their 9th turnover. Utah with 12 in the game.
And there's nothing that Don Nelson can do in this situation other than come to Vernon Maxwell.
And a loose ball foul.
Offensive foul, Stockton.
Yep, John Stockton now with 4 fouls. And the Mavs in the penalty, so more free throws coming up. So Stockton, those 10 rebounds, by the way, is a career high, regular season and or playoff.
Stockton has been in foul trouble this series.
That's his fourth again as Crotty comes in.
John Stockton in game 1 had 4 fouls. In game 2 played most of the fourth quarter with 5 fouls.
Tomorrow on NBC, we've got another NBA playoff tripleheader. First, the pivotal game 3 between the Knicks and the Raptors. Series knotted up at 1 game apiece. Then out west, the Kings will battle the Suns in Phoenix with that series tied. And in the late game, the Lakers looking to move one step closer to another championship as they try and eliminate the Blazers. The news from the New York-Toronto series, Bill, Marcus Camby did not make the trip to Toronto because of the ordeal with his family earlier this week and will not play in game 3.
Marcus dealing with a lot bigger issues than just the game of basketball. Our prayers and thoughts, support goes out to Marcus Camby and the entire Camby family.
Marshall misfires. 8 seconds left in the quarter. Isley for 3. And good. Howard Isley drills the 3 with 7/10 of a second remaining. And it goes out of bounds. It's going to come all the way down the other end. It didn't touch anyone. So Dallas will inbound on their own baseline with 7/10 of a second remaining. Just enough to kind of catch and flip it up there.
Jerry Sloan frustrated, disappointed. Stockton goes to the bench. It falls apart.
And a 20-second timeout call by Don Nelson. He wants to set up a play. And we'll take a break. 7/10 of a second remaining in the third. Mavericks with a chance to add to their lead. Steve Nash back on the bench after receiving the stitches. The Mavericks will now inbound the ball with 7/10 of a second remaining. Don Nelson using his 20-second timeout to try and set up a play. Bradley puts it up. In and out. Oh, that almost went down.
Oh, they run the double screen for Sean Bradley. That's how far it's come here in Dallas.
But the Mavericks in the last minute and a half of the third quarter with a 7-0 run. Howard Isley, the former Jazz man, scoring all 7 of his points in the third period. And that's the lead right now as we head to the fourth. Dallas Mavericks trying to fight off elimination here in game 3. Have led by as many as 13, but the Jazz came back and tied it in the third quarter, only to see that 7-0 run and a little more breathing room for the Mavs as we begin the fourth.
And fortunately for Dallas, Steve Nash back in the lineup right now.
Bradley against Manning.
Don't reach if you're Danny Manning.
Foul before the shot.
Why would you reach on that play if you're Danny Manning? This is a very smart player. Sean Bradley, when was the last time he torched you with his back to the basket move after holding the ball for 10 seconds?
Perhaps one of those Clipper games from years ago. Nash gets inside, flips it up. Won't go. Bradley with the tip in. And Elite back up to 9.
John Stockton unable to defend. He's played with the 4 fouls right now. And when you got Nash coming down the lane, that's when the Mavericks are at their best.
Malone trying to post up against Bradley. He drives by him. Running shot from Malone. Won't go. Malone's tip misses and Nash the rebound. Nash, beautiful feed to Howard. And the lead back to 11.
The Steve Nash explosion here. 2 possessions, 2 terrific plays.
So it's 11 straight points going back to the third quarter.
And you got the impact of Sean Bradley towering over Karl Malone, giving him a little bit of a trouble.
Manning telling Marshall to get out of the way. He wants to take Howard. Tied up. Dangerous pass that Marshall couldn't handle and a turnover.
Things falling apart here for Utah. Got to get back to their basic pick and roll with Stockton. But Nash has been down the lane. Just throw it up, get it up high so your big man from the weak side. That's Sean Bradley's game on the offensive glass. And here's Nash again.
And
that's a tough 5th foul on Stockton on that play.
Stockton upset. He's got 5 personals.
He played most of the fourth quarter of game 2. Jacques Vaughn will check in, though. The crowd at Reunion ecstatic that John Stockton will not be a factor for the foreseeable future.
He has a word with Danny Crawford to explain his side of the story as he goes to the bench. Howard stripped by Malone, picked up by Russell. Crowd wanted to walk, but If anything, it would have been a
We
push.
should have called a loose ball foul from behind on the Dallas Mavericks there. Just let it go, let it play.
Malone against Howard. Nash looking to double team. Tough shot from Malone. In and out. And a tip in from Brian Russell.
If you're going to give up a shot on one side, you have got to dominate the boards on the other. You can't give up both and expect to win.
2 minutes gone by here in the fourth. Still plenty of time, but for the Jazz without Stockton, it will be difficult trying coming back here. Nowitzki. Bradley with another rebound. Sean Bradley has come up big here in the second half. Isley rushed that shot, manning the board.
Daniel Marshall is not playing good enough defense in preparation to be able to block out a player of Sean Bradley's size.
Marshall way short. And Juwan Howard gets his 10th rebound of the game. Howard with a double-double.
What a shake. Tease him, Steve.
Shot won't count. Crowd explodes, but Vaughn fouled him before. And Jacques Vaughn now with 5 personal fouls. 3 team fouls on Utah.
The relentless push. When you're playing against someone like Steve Nash, when you're playing against the guys who were terrific in transition, think of Pete Maravich, think of Magic Johnson in years gone by. You had to meet them in the backcourt and not let them get a run at you. Utah is just retreating softly, and they're paying dearly for it.
John Crotty and David Benoit in the game. Nowitzki looking to post up immediately. Draws the foul. Ball rattles in and out, but Nowitzki will go back to the line where he's 8 for 8. And the Mavericks as a team are 18 of 19 from the free throw line.
Dirk Nowitzki, not the strength of his game, back to the basket. Benoit does a very good job. Hard to see where that foul came from, but Dirk Nowitzki nonetheless will get 2 attempts.
Nowitzki misses the first. Want to remind you, next Saturday at 5 Eastern, the ultimate in horse racing comes to NBC for the first time ever, the 127th Kentucky Derby. A run for the Roses. Can't wait for that next week. Also can't wait for the return of our man Tom Hammond.
We always talk about in this business dreams coming true, and that is going to be the case for Tom Hammond, and we are so proud of him and happy for him. Welcome back, Tom.
Crotty short. Malone tips it. Howard comes up with it. Nash off to the races again. And Nash takes a deep breath before throwing it into Howard. Howard stripped by Manning. Good hands from Manning. Howard furious with the no call.
Discipline and patience. Get what you want.
Russell hits a 3. Brian Russell has hit so many big threes in the playoffs for Utah. Cuts it to a 7-point lead.
Utah just wants to hang as close as they can until they can get Stockton back in. Tremendous pressure on the shoulders of John Crotty, David Benoit, the X Factors.
Ball knocked loose out of bounds. And it's still going to be Mavs ball with 15 on the shot clock. Will take time. Barry Sloan felt it was Utah ball. Mavs will have it in their 7-point lead when we come back.
Point guard play has been the difference, and Steve Nash's ball handling has been a thing of beauty to watch all afternoon, except that time when he dropped the ball out of bounds, and they still, with the referee standing right on top of the play, they give that ball an erroneous call back to the Dallas Mavericks.
Sometimes they just miss it. That time they just missed that one, so Dallas will hold on.
Well, the tough part was they talked it over. And they missed it the
Well, what happens is the official closest, he'll check to see if the other two had a better view, and if they don't, then he'll stick with his call. As Finley misfires, Malone the rebound.
Finally, somebody able to. Oh, that's a tough call.
Offensive foul on Danny Manning.
Danny Manning came to a stop in transition, and Sean Bradley hits him.
I think that's a good call. You can't just stop and walk in and stop like that on the guy.
That's a non-call.
Well, he knocked him to the floor,
He's
Bill.
running up the court and he stops. You're not allowed to stop when you're running up the court.
You can't get in front of a guy like that, knock him to the floor.
Mike, please, my glasses.
Nash underneath, blocked from behind by Crotty. And it's still going to be Mavericks ball.
Sean Bradley is 7'7". He weighs, what, 270 pounds. Danny Manning is offensive foul here.
And they call a foul on Nowitzki for pushing off. I didn't know you wore glasses, by the way. That explains everything.
Pushing to hold your position. You've got to be able to do that without the flailing of the arms. Dirk Nowitzki, who was just dynamite early, has gone very cold here in the second half.
Crotty to Manning. Manning puts it in, and the lead cut to 5. Jazz slowly chipping away.
Danny Manning's three-pointer at the minute mark of game 1 that got them back into control. It was his first playoff three-pointer since 1992, Manning, when he was playing for the then Los Angeles Clippers.
Howard inside. Tough shot from Juwan Howard, who's come alive with 15 points and 11 rebounds. Dallas back up by 7.
Juwan Howard is the one guy that does have playoff experience coming in for the Mavericks.
Manning. Finley the rebound. Manning told us yesterday the Jazz offense sputters when they have quick shots. That was a quick shot. Ball knocked out of bounds. Manning hit it out.
For Utah, it's all got to be inside out, and this type of inside power play by Juwan Howard, his ability to just step through and overpower David Benoit. They're coming right back to that matchup, and Jerry Sloan, who has been upset throughout the second half with Donyell Marshall's contributions. Lewis Johnson reporting from the bench that Coach Sloan has been in Marshall's face throughout. He's coming back with Donyell right now.
As Howard taking advantage of Marshall's absence. Crotty flips it high off the glass. Bradley for the rebound.
How long can Sloan go without John Stockton?
The lead back to 9 for Dallas. Stockton, just like that, gets up off the bench. Nowitzki fouled by Manning. And the Jazz in the penalty early, so free throws coming up for Dirk Nowitzki as Stockton returns with the 5 personals. Manning now with 4.
The free throw numbers from the last game were staggering. 91 free throw attempts, with Utah taking 45 and Dallas taking 46 free throws.
And Utah today have taken just 7 free throws.
7 free throws?
And that's the 22nd free throw attempt by Dallas. Nowitzki now with 28 points.
But it's been the Mavericks' attack of the hoop. Well, the Jazz have sputtered on the offensive end. Dirk Nowitzki flying, soaring, attacking. Steve Nash down the lane, and the punishing offensive low post game of Juwan Howard has been the difference.
Stockton, nice fake, able to bank it in as Nowitzki went up in the air.
And that's the problem that the Mavericks run into when, yes, Sean Bradley can have impact on Karl Malone when he guards him at the high post, but that frees up the basket area and the back cuts for Stockton.
Nash off the dribble.
Look at the footwork. Just beautiful.
Russell the rebound. Again, here where you have to wonder with Dallas, without the big play of the bench, will fatigue become a factor down the stretch?
Not at home.
Manning puts it in.
The crowd here just breathes so much life and energy into you.
And they have been fired up all game long.
A little bit more off the bench. That equals their total for the first 2 games combined for the Mavericks.
Finley, tough shot, won't go. Russell played him beautifully. And here comes Stockton and the Jazz. Trying to draw the foul. Tough shot from Stockton. And again, it's a 5-point game.
Have you noticed a correlation in that when Stockton's in the game, the Jazz play a little bit better?
He's tended to do that quite a few times. Stockton with 8 points, 9 assists, and a career-high 10 rebounds.
John, who hasn't had the quickness today that he had in games 1 and 2, certainly able to deliver a tough runner off the glass.
And the Jazz still in it as they try and eliminate the Mavericks. John Stockton trying to eliminate the Dallas Mavs. When Stockton was drafted back in '84, he admitted he was scared. He didn't know what his future would bring. He said he wanted to stay in the league long enough to buy a house. Well, he's been around long enough for a few of those, and look at, he continues to play so well.
The numbers, minutes played, up 10 in this series. Jerry Sloan telling us the decision that he's made over the years. Tough call against Malone, running back on defense. But everybody wants John Stockton to virtually play the whole game.
Now, he's never had a triple-double in his career with all the wonderful things he's done.
Not one in his entire career.
No. Malone, meanwhile, picks up his 4th foul. And Juwan Howard with 17 points and 11 rebounds coming up very big for Don Nelson. Howard, of course, obtained in that trade at the trading deadline back in February. He had a rough go of it in Washington, signed that big contract and was booed frequently at the MCI Center at home games, and has now come and found a real comfortable place to play here in Dallas.
To be the best player on a bad team is a curse that very few can rid themselves of. Juwan Howard now comes in and is one of 4 very talented players. Now a fresh life for him. What a pass.
Russell wide open. Somebody missed a defensive assignment, and it's a 4-point game. This is the closest now that Utah's been in the fourth quarter. And there's still 4.5 minutes remaining.
Poise, confidence, and competitive greatness. Who can finish it off? Steve Nash has been quiet since the opening moments of this quarter.
Nowitzki stripped but fouled, and Nowitzki will shoot 2 with 4:26 remaining.
The Mavericks have done a good job today of putting their head down and getting to the hoop. They've stopped the whining. They've stopped the complaining. They're down the lane time and time again, whether it's Howard, whether it's Nash, now it's Nowitzki.
And he picks up his 5th. Nowitzki, after these 2 free throws, he'll have attempted twice as many free throws as the Jazz team combined. This is his 13th and 14th free throw attempts. The Jazz have only taken 7. Lead back to 6. And Nowitzki now with 31 points and 9 rebounds.
Coming with the trapping defense, changing all the time. Don Nelson trademark, beautiful.
Stockton backdoor off Malone's screen. And Stockton now just 1 assist shy of a triple-double.
Players who can think, pass, and catch. That's what Utah Jazz basketball is all about. What a find they have in Donyell Marshall.
4 minutes remaining, 4-point game. Mavericks have led since the first quarter, up by as many as 13. Nash for 3. Bradley's tip won't go. Finley misses from point-blank range, and Russell with a tough rebound in traffic.
Missed opportunities for Dallas.
Anxious moments for the crowd here at Reunion Arena. Russell nearly throws it away.
Confusion and shot clock a problem now.
So what do? You put it in his hands. Malone wide open. Won't go down, and Nowitzki rips down the rebound. The Mavericks, again, this is their first home playoff game at Reunion in 11 years. If they lose, it'll be the last playoff game at Reunion as they'll move to a new arena next season.
Clear out for Nowitzki. Let him go one-on-one.
Nowitzki puts it in. Tough shot from Dirk Nowitzki. And the lead back to 6.
Facing the basket. The strength of his game. The footwork. There was questions about his foot speed and foot quickness early on, but he certainly answered all those this afternoon.
He's got 33. Manning answers back with a 3. He hit the huge 3 in game 1. And as you mentioned, they came back from a 4-point deficit in the final minute. Danny Manning having a very big game, 19 points off the bench.
No time for mistakes. No time for mental breakdowns. Make the other team beat you with great plays.
Nowitzki's shot won't go, and Stockton, whose assist on that last basket was his 10th.
Oh, Karl Malone was open in transition. How about an isolation play from Malone and then go at Sean Bradley from 15 feet?
Stockton, by the way, got his first career triple-double on that last assist. Malone, shot won't go, but a foul. And Karl Malone will shoot 2 free throws with 2:06 remaining and a 3-point Dallas lead.
But with Dirk Nowitzki isolated one-on-one, the initiation of the contact, he learns that move from guys like Kiki Vandeweghe, one of the members of this Dallas Maverick coaching staff. A step back, and then Danny Manning answers right back.
Malone with 2 free throws coming up. Dallas holding on to a 3-point lead here in the 4th. Hard to believe in his Hall of Fame career. It's his first career triple-double. But prior to today, his career high in rebounds was 9. Of course, he's the all-time assist leader, all-time steals leader, and maybe the best pure point guard to ever play the game. You can certainly argue that.
What's your definition of pure? Where do you put Magic Johnson in there? Where do you put Bob Cousy?
Well, this is a long discussion to get into at this point with Karl Malone ready to take 2 big free throws.
Well, when you make a statement like that, we just can't have you go out over the edge.
Can't you just say okay? Malone, who's made more free throws than anyone in NBA history, with 2 big ones right here. And there you see past Moses earlier this season.
Never forget that Wilt missed more than 5,000 free throws. But it's very easy to say that John Stockton is among the best point guards. You can just drop Pure off of there.
All right, we'll settle at that. The 2 clutch free throws for Malone. 1-point game with 2 minutes remaining. Can the Mavericks keep their season going? Can Utah advance to the 2nd round? Finley has been off on the offensive end. Gets inside. Count it. And a foul. Michael Finley with a huge shot and a chance for a 3-point play.
Jerry Sloan is calling for a double dribble. He's up the sideline barking for double dribble. The ball is poked away. How many times have we seen, though, Brian Russell? We were just talking to him about it before the game, about when they isolate the great player on the wing. Oh, no, you can't miss the free throw there.
Finley was 1 for 13 before that shot, and he puts Dallas back up by 3.
But Brian Russell continues to reach instead of patiently waiting against that terrific offensive player that he's matched up with.
5 on the shot clock. Stockton gets inside. Left-handed. Won't go. Fight for the rebound. Bradley. 1:25 remaining. Dallas with the ball in a 3-point lead.
I'll come back to Nowitzki here.
Everyone in the place getting on their feet. Nash, Nowitzki, and he threw it too low, off the shin, out of bounds.
Nowitzki hit the jumper, the one-on-one play against Danny Manning. They never really came back and gave him another look. It was such a pretty shot and such a fluid execution of the play. You'd think that he's in the rhythm, that Nash would say, why don't we try that again?
Stockton gets around Nash. Feed to Malone. Malone. Shot won't go, but a foul as he goes down hard. And Karl Malone will go back to the free throw line for 2 more as Nowitzki picks up his 3rd.
When Stockton turned the corner up high, he saw Bradley, and Bradley has such range, such wingspan and spread. That ability of Stockton to freeze the defender as soon as he makes his lunge created the opportunity.
So Malone, very big free throws right here once again. Knocks down the first. His rookie year, Karl Malone shot 48% from the free throw line. Next year, 59%. He was not a good free throw shooter, obviously, but he has become an excellent one. His last 3 seasons, he has shot 79% from the line. 28 points, 13 boards, 6 assists for Karl Malone.
And here's a guy who doesn't take thousands of free throws per day in practice. He takes a normal number, but it's the way he practices those few and the mental concentration and discipline that he's developed to establish himself as a terrific free throw shooter.
Finley against Russell again. Shot clock down to 7. Finley looks up, makes his move. Juwan Howard, the fake, leaning in. Howard off the mark. Marshall rips it down.
Too many fakes.
Here come the Jazz with a chance to take the lead. Stockton gets inside, puts it in, and the Jazz have their first lead since the first quarter. They've come back from an 11-point fourth-quarter deficit.
And didn't Karl Malone say this game would not be won in the first quarter?
Nash driving. Tough shot from Nash. It's good! Steve Nash puts the Mavericks back up by 1. Shot clock is off. The Jazz will go for the win.
No timeout taken.
Stockton looking. Marshall couldn't handle it, and Finley comes up with it. And they foul Finley. Donyell Marshall couldn't handle a pass. And Finley will now shoot 2 very big free throws. But even if he hits them, it would only be a 3-point game with 8 seconds remaining.
Stockton wrong foots Steve Nash here, just leaves him hanging helplessly. Steve Nash comes right back with an extremely difficult fadeaway shot to put them right back up.
Well, this one far from over. Finley 2 of 4 from the line today. Makes it a 2-point game, but still 8 seconds remain. Jazz have a couple of timeouts remaining. They've got 2 full and a 20.
Utah appeared confused down that last possession. Stockton was caught along the baseline. Bradley was standing tall, smothering him.
Finley rattles in the second.
So now Utah takes the timeout.
Big free throws for Finley. Dallas trying to hold off elimination. 3-point lead, but the Jazz will have the ball. Dirk Nowitzki, 33 points. Dallas leading by 3 with 8 seconds remaining. Utah still with a full and a 20. Neither team with a foul to give. Obviously, Jazz have to go for the 3 here.
If you're Dallas, do you foul? I think you do foul here, make it a free throw shooting contest. They're a terrific free throw shooting team.
Don't let them tie it with a 3.
Right.
Make them hit 2 free throws and get the ball back.
Absolutely, then make them foul you.
The key is maybe take some time off the clock before the foul.
But clutch play here. That's John Stockton, that's Danny Manning, that's Brian Russell, and Karl Malone.
Stockton, the 3 won't go. Rebound, Nash. And the Mavericks hold on and win. Dallas lives to play game 4 here on Tuesday. Their season is not over just yet. The first home playoff game in 11 years. The fans have waited a long time and the celebration underway.